Well, this Friday, you can wear red for women and help spread awareness for how heart disease impacts millions of Americans. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death for women. And here to talk about what you can do to stay in charge of your heart health is Dr. Thomas O'Brien, president at the Christ Hospital Heart and Vascular Institute, and Rachel McCarthy from the American Heart Association. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. O'Brien, I want to start with you because I was reading over the statistics for cardiovascular disease, and it is startling. I mean, talk about what we need to be concerned as women.
Yeah, it's sobering to learn that cardiovascular disease is still the #1 cause of death for both men and women. And for instance, stroke is actually more common cause of death for women than it is for men.
Wow.
So startling and surprising. And we've come a long way, but there's still so much to do, so much to learn about what we can do differently and recognize differently for cardiovascular disease as it pertains to women as opposed to men. There are differences biological, but also differences in awareness, differences in perception that we need to address in order to make a difference in these outcomes.
And Rachel, this is the 20th anniversary for Go Red for Women Day.
Yes.
Talk about its impact it's made over the last 20 years.
Yeah, so we have been American Heart Association. We turned 100 this year.
Yay.
We are very proud to have a century of learning about cardiovascular disease and stroke, but women didn't start being studied until about 30 years ago. So we got a 70-year gap to make up to figure out maybe, like Dr. O'Brien said, why the difference is of our signs and symptoms of a heart attack, why women aren't receiving bystander CPR as much as men are, and why women are having deaths postpartum because of high blood pressure. So a lot of work going into this. Specifically, the Go Red for Women movement was founded to make an importance of women's heart health needs to be really focused on.
Absolutely. And Dr. O'Brien, I want to read this statistic. Only 38% of cardiovascular research have been conducted on women, and you talked about that 70-year gap. Is that something that is alarming to you?
It is, unfortunately, not surprising. Traditionally, clinical trials have enrolled a lot of white men, and we've had women underrepresented, and of course, underrepresented minorities not present as they should be in these studies. So we don't understand as much as we should about women, but we're learning a little bit more in the past few decades, at least.
Right.
In studies that have published in the last 5 years, we know that 45% of women, this is 20 years old all the way through the spectrum of adult age, 45% will have some form of cardiovascular disease.
Yeah.
And we don't think about that when you're otherwise feeling young and healthy. You may have hypertension and be totally unaware. There's things you can do to make a difference in your cardiovascular health, so awareness is top of a priority for us to make sure people know early so they can change these outcomes and have a better, healthier life long.
Yeah, and speaking of things that we can do, obviously awareness is #1. Once we are aware of the situation, how can we take charge at home, whether it's diet or exercise?
There's a few things that we've hit as hot topics in the years. People think of high cholesterol, hypertension, diabetes, when really we've learned we need to be ahead of the game. We need to be monitoring our weight, of course, but aware of our blood sugar before it becomes diabetes, aware of our blood pressure before we're on multiple medications for hypertension. Of course, we need to know we need to eat right, don't smoke, get plenty of sleep, get plenty of activity and exercise during the day. There's things you can do to prevent heart disease. Prevention's the key. That's the way we're going to make a difference for the whole city and for the population.
Absolutely. I know we beat the hammer with the nail, or beat the nail with the hammer on that all the time, but it's really important for people to understand those things. And Rachel, how can people at home help? I know Friday is the day that we're to wear red, but how can people sign up, or is there a website that we can learn more?
Yeah, ourheart.org is the best way for you to find all the resources too. What Dr. Bryan was referring to is our Life's Essential 8 different topics you can head on to make sure that you're preventing heart disease and stroke. And then wear red with us. Look through your closet, wear your red on Friday, and tag us at Cincy Go Red or our American Heart Association social media channels.
All right, Rachel, Dr. O'Brien, thank you so much for joining us on this important topic this morning.
Hey there. Yeah, you could stop watching right now, but let's be honest, you don't want to do that. Hit the links or click subscribe to see more amazing content from all of us here at Local 12.